Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to our Edmonton Oilers Throwback 2010 franchise mode here in NHL 25. So in last episode, if you did not catch it, we decided to try and make our team a little bit worse, and we simulated the rest of the season without any other trades, and we still made the playoffs despite having quite a mid-looking roster on paper. And I'm kind of surprised that this team was able to do as good as they did again this season, because obviously we've made the playoffs now in the first two seasons of this, when we were expecting to kind of be more of a rebuilding team. But some guys took some big steps up this year. Also, a good young player in Jordan Eberle did well this season. So excited to kind of see what some of these young guys could do in the postseason. I don't know why this is flashing like this right now. It's kind of weird. I didn't expect the game to start trying to break as soon as I loaded up franchise mode, but kind of surprised, like I said, that this team made the playoffs. We did suffer an injury to Gilbert Brulé right at the end of the season, so we are going to have to make some line adjustments before we get into our playoff matchup against the Sharks. But yeah, this team had a good season. I don't really expect them to have a good postseason ahead, because I just don't think this team is good enough or built enough to be a playoff team for very long. But honestly, we never know. We could surprise some teams. Obviously, last year in the first round, we played off against Detroit, and this team somehow was able to get itself all the way to a conference finals against the Kings, only to lose. So maybe this team could still win in the postseason, but the San Jose Sharks are going to probably pose a big threat. As you can see when we do a little bit of a comparison, in the regular season, you can see that they were more of an offensive-based team. They were 7th in goals for, 3rd on the power play. Meanwhile, they are 20th in goals against and 17th on the penalty kill. Meanwhile, for us, we're more of a defensive team. We are 22nd in offense in terms of goals for and also on the power play. And then we are 9th on goals for and 2nd on the penalty kill. So basically, this series comes down to who has the who could outscore the other, maybe, or who could play to their strength. Basically, like if we could play good defensively and not allow them to score goals, we'll win games. If they score goals and we can't defend, then they will win games. So should be an interesting matchup for sure. But I definitely think they have a lot more skill than us on paper. As we'll go look at their roster right now just to show you guys in case you forgot. And then we'll get into the comments after that. But you can see they definitely have a lot more skill than us at the current stage. You have like Heatley, Thornton, Pavelski, Couture, Marlowe, all with X factors. They signed Sergei Fedorov back in year 1, and he's still pretty damn good for a 41-year-old. 57 points this season as more of a third-line guy. Like, just in general, they have very good depth. Like, this team could definitely win the Stanley Cup this season. Their defense maybe isn't as strong as it could be, but it's still a good enough defensive core. And then their goaltending with Nabokov could be relatively strong if Nabokov doesn't drop off too hard. So, pretty good team there in San Jose. And I definitely expect us to have a tough time playing good defensive hockey, especially against an offensive core like this. Like, there's definitely a chance that the Sharks could completely rout us in a lot of these games coming up, unless we find our defensive strength from the regular season. But anyways, with that said, let's get in your guys' comments, see what you guys have to say about last episode, and then we'll make sure we're set up the way we want to for the start of the playoffs. So the first comment is from Jared the Rabbit, who says, Moss is definitely over-simulating. And yeah, David Moss, I don't remember what team he's on now, but yeah, he's completely over-simulating. Like, he had like 60-something points, I think, this season, which in real life, David Moss was not a huge point producer. He had some okay seasons, but he wasn't a type of guy to put up like 60-plus points. The next comment is from Saurataku, who says, Tampa giving up on Alex Killorn this early makes me angry. I like that you're going more in depth with some of the stats, like the goalie goals. And yeah, I think that's something we need to probably do in most of our franchise modes, is now take more advantage of like stats and stuff like that. Like if we see like a guy hit a career total of like 500 goals, maybe go back through his stats to see when he hit 500 goals. Just for fun like that. Like, we could easily go to somebody like Hemsky this season, see how many hat tricks he picked up this season, if he had any, that type of thing. Like, it's kind of a fun thing just to look through, like, game logs, for instance, going through split stats and just seeing who he played good against. Like, how did Hemsky play against the Sharks, who are playing in round 1 right now? He had 6 points in 3 games against them, so maybe that means he's going to be a huge threat in this first round for us. Meanwhile, against teams like, say, Chicago, he only had 2 goals in 4 games, so we kind of know which teams he doesn't do good against and what teams he could actually score goals against. So I think it's a fun little thing to look at advanced stats like that. So maybe that's something we need to literally do every single season if possible. And the last and final comment is from Max Herman, who says Sam Gagner should be the new thumbnail. And yeah, I totally agree. So if we do move on from Hemsky this offseason, which is probably a good idea because he's definitely been our best offensive producer, we should definitely make Sam Gagner the thumbnail athlete, just because Sam Gagner, I think He's definitely somebody I would like to hold on to for a while. Might be somebody that could end up being a captain for his team too. So definitely once we move on from Hemsky, which is probably this offseason, we'll probably look to do that. I just don't really know exactly what we're going to get for Hemsky when we move him. But yeah, he's definitely a fantastic player and all that stuff. But he's just making our team way too good right now for no reason. So likely he's going to get moved out in the offseason. Horkov, hopefully we can get him to waive his no movement clause, stuff like that. Just to help with like tearing down his team and making them more of a rebuilder. So let's get our lineup set up for the playoffs. So I think we're going to go back to Hemsky on the top line because obviously now we're not trying to necessarily lose games like we were in the regular season. Eberle can play with Horkov and O'Sullivan, Nilsson. I put Pouliot down the middle. I think that's an okay thing. Yeah, I think having Pouliot there is fine. And in that way, Patolny could still take faceoffs and then JF Shock could play as a fourth liner. So obviously JF Shock shouldn't be super high in the lineup. Defensively, Spiza and Gilbert, Schmid and Petrie, Whitney and Strudwick. Obviously, I think Whitney should probably be a little bit higher, so let's move Whitney. We should move probably Whitney higher, but I don't know what I could do to make sure there's no minus on that. Yeah, with Strudwick back, it doesn't really work, so let's just keep the defense, I guess, the same. And then obviously, one thing that's kind of a bit different also is we are running Devin Dubnyk, so Dubnyk and Delorier both played actually really good this season, so both of them might get chances this postseason, but obviously last year we were running Heavy Bullen. He was actually fantastic in the playoffs. Dubnyk's never played a playoff game so far at this point in time, so we'll see if Dubnyk and Delorier can win some games for us this postseason, and hopefully we could still win games without Brule, but like I said, I don't really care too much if we end up winning this playoff series or not. It's just more about getting some more experience, I guess, for the guys that are going to be here longer term, so with that, I think we're ready to get into this matchup. How did we do against the Sharks during the regular season? Out of curiosity, before we actually start simulating. Obviously, we saw Hemsky had like 6 points in 3 games against them, so he probably won us some games because of that, I would assume. Let's see. Where are the Sharks games? There's the first one, 4-3 overtime win on Monday, December 1st. Then we played them here. We won 3-1 and 5-4. So all 3 meetings against them came in December, which is interesting, and we won them all. Not necessarily convincingly. We did score goals against them, which is kind of surprising because we're, like I said, more of a defensive team. So actually, that wasn't all the meetings against them. I guess Hemsky must have missed some games against them, which he did get injured at one point. 2-0 win there as well. So we are 4-0 against them? Or what? Let's see. Was there any more meetings against them? Does not look like it. So Hemsky missed 1 game, but we did beat them in every single meeting, which means we're probably going to end up losing this based on that. But let's get into this matchup and see if we could surprise people like we did last year when we knocked out Detroit, or are we going to actually get fed what we should get fed? Like, these Sharks should hypothetically feast on us right now in this first round. So let's see what happens. Game number 1 on home ice. Obviously, we should have home ice advantage for a while because we are a pretty solid team in the regular season. So as long as we don't go up against super crazy hard teams, I guess. First period, game number 1. 1-0 Sharks. It's not terrible. I mean, it's a good defensive start. We only give up 1 goal. It's to Logan Couture. Shots are 11-10 in favor of San Jose. So, like I said, if we allow too many goals, obviously that's going to be hard for us to come back in games because we're not an offensive team. But if we keep these games kind of like low scoring, we could still come back and win these type of games. So let's see if our team could tie it up potentially in the second, or if we're going to still be trailing going into the third. Second period, 3-1 Sharks. Now they're finding their offense. That's not good. Our only goal so far comes from Ryan Patolny, of all people. That's a 4th-line guy, so that's not great. Sergei Fedorov then took them the lead, and Ryan Close scored 50 seconds later, 49 seconds, I guess, technically. But we're down by a pair of goals going into the third, which is going to be very tough for us to come back from because we are more of a defensive team. Shots are 22-15 in favor of the Sharks. Can we find a way to maybe get back into this game, or are we going to lose game 1? Let's see what happens. Like I said, I don't really care too much if we lose in this first round. I expect to lose in this first round, so anything better than losing in the first round would be a surprise. As Joe Thornton makes it 4-1 with a power play goal, of course he does. Yeah, not necessarily the strongest first game for us. Jordan Eberle scores his first career playoff goal, so at least we get that. That's good to see for Jordan Eberle, because like I said, he was a pretty good rookie this season. But we end up losing 4-2 on goals, only from Eberle and Patolny. So like I said, a 4th-line guy and then a guy that hopefully should get some good growth this season because it was a good rookie year for him. So Patolny from Gilbert and Hemsky, and then we had Eberle from O'Sullivan and Horkoff. So our top 6 pretty much. I guess Hemsky must have been going off on a line change when that Patolny goal happened. I'm not too sure. But yeah, the Sharks get 4 goals from 4 different guys. So 3 stars of the game: Ryan Clough first star, Devin Setaguchi second star, and Patolny got 3rd star. So yeah, not necessarily ideal when Ryan Patolny is one of your leading point getters in the first game. But oh well. Like I said, I expect us to lose despite having the home ice advantage. Like I said, the Sharks are definitely a team that could win a Stanley Cup this year based on that offensive core alone. Like, they also have the goaltending. The defensive core is kind of like solid on that top 2, of course, but the top 4 a little bit weaker, but it's still a good enough defensive core that they could definitely go far, I'd say. So we're going to keep the team the exact same for Game 2, but obviously if we lose this game, maybe we make some more adjustments again. But for right now, obviously, like I said, we don't really care if we lose in this playoff round. We're trying to get more into rebuilding eventually. So if we take a bit of a step back this season, it's not a huge issue. So let's get to game number 2. We are still on home ice. Can we find a way to potentially tie the series up? Let's see what happens. Yeah, we'll simulate the AHL game as well. I don't know if the AHL team made the playoffs with Heavy Bullen or not, but hopefully they did. First period, game number 2. 1-0 Sharks again, okay. And it's Logan Couture again. It's a short-handed goal again, so that's not necessarily ideal, but it's okay. Shots are dead even, 10-10. It's a 1-0 game for the Sharks. Can we find a way to have a good second period, unlike last game? Because last game pretty much is where we lost, is the second period. So, second period. 3-2. Okay, we're still within this game. David Moss makes it 2-0 Sharks, so that's where he was. I don't know why I didn't even realize he was on the Sharks, but anyways, he makes it 2-0. Cogliano makes it 2-1. Fedorov makes it 3-1, but Gagne gets us on the board with a power play goal. So we are still in this game. We are actually out shooting him as well, 19-18. So this is a type of game that we definitely could still win if we have a good third period. So let's see if we could tie this game up potentially, or is the Sharks going to find their offense still more like they have been so far this postseason? Third period underway, power play for the Sharks. They don't score on it, and we tied a game up. It's Cogliano again, so let's go Cogliano. We're getting goals from some good players, and Marlowe then gives the Sharks back the lead. Kind of surprised we're finding our offense in this game, but the Sharks, like I said, we can't allow them to score too many goals. Liam Reddick's. I don't even think Reddick's ever played a career playoff game, so that's a pretty big goal for Reddick's. And that ties this game at 4 and gets us to overtime in game 2. All right. So the Sharks weren't a good defensive team, and they're definitely showing that in this game because we have 4 goals on 26 shots. However, they're also scoring goals like they were good at during the regular season. So this might be the type of game that we might be able to find a way to score more goals, surprisingly. But right now we're still not playing the best defensively, but that's okay. Like, I don't really know who's technically the worst team going into this overtime period, but it's been a really back and forth game. So let's hope that we can find a hero here. Cogs has 2 goals. Gagne has a goal. And then Reddick's, of course, has a goal too. So I don't really know who to call on. Let's call on JF Jacques since Reddick scored a goal in this game. Penalty kill to start off overtime. And we killed it off. Nicely done, boys. Good little penalty kill. Power play for us. It's a 5-on-3. It's a long one, but we do not score on it either. Penalty kill. Nicely done. A lot of power plays for both teams, but nobody scoring on those. And then the Sharks win on overtime on the 40th shot on goal. It's Joe Thornton, of course. Well, that's kind of a tough one to lose because I felt like our team, since it was back and forth so much, that we were going to win it, but we could not score on that 5-on-3. Definitely still shows that we don't really have that offensive touch to our team, but we lose both of our home games headed to San Jose, which is not ideal, but like I said, I don't really care too much if we end up losing in the first round. So Cogliano from Gilbert and Dubnyk. So Devin Dubnyk picks up an assist in that game. Interesting. Gagne gets a goal from O'Sullivan and Cogliano. Cogliano gets one from Lucas Biza. Nice to see. Reddick's from Robert Nilsson, of all people. And then, of course, we lose in overtime. Let's take a look at some stats here. 3 points, though, from Cogliano. Everybody else that had points had 1 only. So Cogliano is looking pretty good. He actually got 31 minutes of ice time that game, too, which is the most out of any forward. He got 6 more minutes than Sam Gagne. So Cogliano is looking pretty solid at this point. But yeah, a lot of bad plus minuses on this team, which is not ideal. And in goaltending, Dubnyk definitely did not play strong in that game. But he has been at least good in the regular season so far. Cogliano gets first star in the loss, so shout out to Andrew Cogliano, the journeyman. Logan Couture gets second star, and also Joe Thornton, the third star. Alright, well, we might have to make some adjustments going to San Jose, but like I said, I don't care too much if we lose, and that's a pretty big blow. Patrick O'Sullivan has been injured with a sprained ankle. He's not out super long term, but that is going to make our team definitely a lot worse without having O'Sullivan and Gilbert Brule as well. So we lose two guys in the top six in the span of a few days, I guess. So let's go to edit lines and see what we're working with now. I don't really want Chris Menard in the top six, but I don't really have much else I could go. I could put Nilsson, I guess, up there, since he's okay. Chris Menard's going to be playing third line left wing. Huh. How good of a face-off man is Menard? 70. He's not as good as Pouliot, okay. Because I was going to say maybe we could put Menard down the middle. Yeah, I guess we'll go with something like this, but damn. Yeah, our left wing side is a lot weaker, for sure now. So we'll go with that. And yeah, Dubnyk so far not playing the best. So you know what? Just because we don't care too much, we're going to give Jeff Delorier a chance to play some playoff games, or at least one playoff game, just to give him maybe that experience going forward. So let's give Jeff Delorier the chance in San Jose, but we will likely go back to Dubnyk for game 4. It's just more to get everybody on this team some playing time a little bit, right? And since we have injuries right now, I don't think there's a way we're going to come back in the series potentially. So with that said, let's get to game 3. See if we can find a way to win in San Jose. If we don't, like I said, not a huge issue. So here we go. Game 3 on the road. Can we start clawing back into the series, or are we going to lose another game? First period, game 3. 3-1 Sharks. Okay, we're pretty much depleted at this point. We got outshot 17-8 in that first period, so yeah, we're definitely not playing to our strength. Like I said, it depends on which team plays to their strength. The Sharks are right now scoring a lot of goals against us, and we're just not playing our defensive hockey we had during the regular season, which is expected after moving a guy like Sheldon Souray. So Setaguchi makes it 1-0. Vlasic made it 2-0 literally not that long later. Cogliano gets us on the board, so Cogliano continues to be our best player this postseason, and then Logan Couture scores for them. Shots are 17-8, as I said, so we got destroyed in that first period. Can we get back into this game in any capacity in the second? Second period. 3-3, okay, well, we didn't deserve to come back, I don't think, but Redix and Patoli score goals as well, so there's been some guys that have been consistently contributing. Cogliano, Redix, and Patoli both have multiple goals this round as well. Like, I don't really know why these two guys are simulating good. I can understand why Cogliano would, but it's that's definitely not a period I expected us to actually come back in. Like, I thought that was going to be a game we lose like 6-1 or something like that, but a good second period has us having another chance to win a game. Like I said, last game we almost won if we would have found a way to score on that 5-3, so our team is at least learning a bit more about how to play in the postseason. Shots are 27-17 in favor of the Sharks. So far, Nabokov hasn't been good in this game for them, so let's see what happens. Third period underway. Can we find a way to get that lead as David Moss gets a power play goal to make it 4-3? Yeah, we just can't find any ways to keep the puck out of the net. Delorier has been okay so far, but he's been under siege a lot in terms of shots. Can we find a way to tie this game up again and get it to another overtime situation potentially? No, we can't. Torrey Mitchell makes it 5-3. So despite the good second period comeback, we still have a third period collapse. We lose 6-3 in game 3, and now it looks like we are probably going to get swept, as I kind of anticipated last episode. But man, we just can't find any ways to defend right now, but that's okay. Normally I'd be kind of pissed off, but since this is year 2 only, it's like it doesn't matter. We're not even in the rebuild yet. So once we get out of the rebuild and we are actually trying to win, obviously I'll be a little bit more pissed off at that point. But Cogliano from Gagne and Hemsky, Redix from Menard and Pouliot. Then we have Patoli from Jacques and Ryan Jones, okay. And then they get 3 unanswered goals just because of a power play goal from David Moss, pretty much. Damn. 3 stars of the game, Setaguchi, Fedorov, and Vlasic. Let me take a look at our stats in that game. Only guys with 1 point, but Menard picked up a point in his first game, which is kind of funny to see. Jeff Petrie was a -4. God damn. Laddie Schmid was a -3. Oof. So our top guys really didn't have the strongest game, which is not what I want to see, really. But damn. And Delorier had an 872, but when he faces 39 shots on goal, I can't really complain too much with how he played in that one. So, yeah, so far we definitely can't find our defensive play, which is okay. We've literally allowed 4 goals, 5 goals, and 6 goals. So this game we're probably going to lose by 7 or something like that, right? This has been a pretty disastrous playoff showing so far, but at least we came close to winning a game in Game 2. Game 1 was kind of close. Game 3, I mean, it was close, I guess, up until the third period. So we've had some positives, but definitely the defensive play has been quite lackluster, and the goaltending has been pretty bad too. So for this last game, we're going to just go best lines at this point, just to see if we could at least get one win or something like that. But I'm going to just go best lines and see if the coach has a good lineup set up. So those guys are still injured. Spiza gets scratched. I don't really like that, but they are going to use Chris Menard as the 4th line center. Patolny gets moved up with Reddick. I don't mind that because those two guys have been good. So I don't know about having Chorney in the lineup over Spiza, but we'll do it for this game. Might as well at this point. Because I don't see us reverse sweeping the San Jose Sharks at this point. If we do, this team might win the Stanley Cup if that happens. So let's get to Game 4 and see if we can at least win one game in the series or not. Kind of sucks considering last year we were in the conference finals, but we didn't deserve to be in the conference finals to begin with. We knocked out some teams way too easily that shouldn't have been, but let's do a real-time simulation since this is an elimination game and see if we could survive. Sharks score immediately to start the game as Devin Setaguchi beating Dubnyk. Not ideal, but that's okay. Like I said, I don't really care if we lose the series. Just hoping for some good stuff from our younger guys. And like I said, Reddick and Patolny have been probably some of the better players in the series for us. Jordan Eberle scored in the first game, but he hasn't done anything since, I don't think. It's 1-0 Sharks after 1. Shots 14-8 in favor of them as well. Yeah, it looks like we're potentially going to get swept here. As the second period starts, Chorney scores in his playoff debut, so that's kind of cool. Dan Boyle answers right back, of course, because that's what the Sharks do. They give us false hope that they're going to blow the game, and then they end up scoring right afterwards. Vlasic makes it 3-1. The Sharks are getting goals even from their defenders, so that's a pretty big goal there from Vlasic at this point in the game. A lot of defensive goals in this game in general, and we're going to be down by 2 goals going into the third. We're being outshot 26-12. Our only goal coming from Taylor Chorney, of all people. It's kind of crazy, man. Well, this is probably our last period of the season. Let's see if we could have any positives about this third period. Third period underway. Come on, boys. Maybe give me another goal. At least Fedorov makes it 4-1. Mitchell makes it 5-1. We have just not found any defensive consistency in this playoffs. I'm really surprised we were that good defensively during the regular season, though, because this Sharks team has blown us out in every single game. Or, well, not really every single game, but they've scored a lot of goals against us. Justin Braun makes it 6-1. God damn, boys. This Dubnyk was in net for all 6 of those goals. And that's a pretty bad showing. That's basically what our team is kind of like in a way, though. We don't score a lot, and then I guess now we give up a lot. Normally we don't do that, but almost as I said, we almost allowed 7 goals. So 6 goals against on 36 shots. God damn. Well, that was definitely a poor playoff showing, and like we kind of anticipated, we have been swept in the first round and watched the Sharks go on to win the Stanley Cup or something like that, but Chorney with our only goal in that game from Hemsky and Gagne. So Hemsky might have played his last game there as an Oiler, depending on what we could find for him this offseason. But, wow. Chorney and Strouberg were somehow a +1 in that game. But look at the plus-minus on like Witt and Gilbert. -4 for both those guys as well. Everybody on this team was minus pretty much except for the 4th line and then a top 6 defensive pairing. And Dubnyk had an .833 save percentage. So definitely one of our worst playoff performances I've ever seen. 3 stars in that game. Dan Boyle with 2 points, Fedorov with 2 points, and Joe Pavelski with 2 points. The Sharks got really good depth scoring too in that one. A lot of different guys showed up for them against us, but we get slapped completely. We allowed 4 goals, 5 goals, and then 6 goals in each of those last 2 games. I was hoping we'd at least win one because that overtime game I thought we would have maybe got to find a way to win, but we didn't. But at least we made the playoffs this year in a way. But I was kind of, like I said, I would have preferred to have a lottery pick this year than making the postseason at that rate. But the game wanted us to be a playoff team, so here we are. Let's take a look at some stats to wrap up that round. Like I said, not necessarily a great showing for our team. If we look at our stats in that playoff round, we scored 2.5 goals for per game, which is definitely not the best. We allowed 5.25 goals against per game in those 4 games, so got destroyed. Only 1 power play goal on 13 attempts, 7.7%. And our penalty kill was 81.3%. And of course, we lost every single game. Damn. Well, I wonder who's going to end up winning the Stanley Cup this season is the question on that. But player stats for the playoffs. Here, let me just remove my face so you guys can see this a bit better in terms of in-depth stats. You can see if we go to forwards, we got absolutely destroyed. Cogliano had 4 points in 4 games, was -4, but Gagne -7 with 3 points. Hemsky -6 with 3 points. And then Ryan Petoli was solid. Liam Reddick was actually plus somehow. Chris Menard had points. Like, we had points from guys that were not anticipated to. Patrick O'Sullivan was good when he played in terms of assists, but a lot of guys had bad plus minuses on this team because of that first round. Like, our bottom 6 actually had okay plus minuses because they don't get a lot of ice time, but our top 6 got completely shredded defensively, which is insane. But at least some guys showed up in terms of points, but not enough. From a defensive standpoint, Gilbert had 2 points, but look at the pairing of Petrie and Schmid. Or Schmid, I guess I should say. -7. That's crazy. So, yeah, some guys really struggled defensively. Other guys didn't so much. But it was mostly our guys with not a lot of ice time that were actually good. So, and Chorney literally scored on his only shot that playoffs. That might be his only career playoff game at this point, too. The funny thing is, in this, he never scored a regular season goal in this point in time either. So, that's technically his first NHL goal, even though he might have scored one in real life before then. I'm not too sure. So there's that. And then goaltending numbers, absolutely abysmal. Dubnyk posted an .855 and Delorier had an .871. So yeah, we just definitely didn't play to our defensive strength. Dubnyk did pick up an assist in that first round as well, which is kind of cool, but definitely need to be a better defensive team eventually down the road. But right now, obviously, the rebuild is on the horizon. Alright, so with that said, I think we are ready to find out who ends up winning the Stanley Cup in 2010-11. Maybe we'll get some realistic results because Boston and Vancouver are actually both in the playoffs, so it would be kind of interesting if that's the case. Chicago didn't even make the playoffs this year, which is kind of surprising. I don't really know why they didn't make the playoffs because they should have a good roster still on paper, but let's assimilate to the draft. Find out who wins the Stanley Cup for 2010-11. Our AHL team might be still in the playoffs too, so maybe Heavy Bowling could bring Springfield a cup. Never mind, as they just got eliminated, I guess. Let's go best lines in the NHL because at this point it doesn't matter. Who is going to be the Stanley Cup champion in 2011? Is it going to be realistic or not realistic? The answer is going to be determined soon. I know it's going to pop up soon. I'm like, damn. The answer for 2010-11, as Chicago just fired their head coach. That kind of makes sense because they should have made the playoffs probably this year. At this point in time, I guess that would have been Joel Quenneville still as the head coach. But the Stanley Cup champions are Washington again, and Manchester, I think, did win the Calder Cup last year too, so we might have had repeat champions in both the NHL and AHL. I'm pretty sure Washington won last season, and in Manchester, I think did win the AHL if I remember right, but that's actually kind of insane. So Washington wins the Stanley Cup again. Now the question I have is who did they beat in that Stanley Cup Finals for 2010-11? They beat the Vancouver Canucks, so we almost got a realistic result. Boston did get eliminated in the first round, which kind of sucks, but Vancouver and Washington being in the Stanley Cup Finals in 2011 isn't too far off. So I don't mind that, but Vancouver loses that series in 5 games instead of 7 games like they did against the Bruins, but that's interesting. LA got eliminated in the conference finals, so LA almost went as far as they did last year, but who knows, they definitely should win a Stanley Cup next season. And then in the AHL, Manchester beats the Toronto Marlies for the Calder Cup in 6 games. Our AHL team got eliminated by Syracuse in the first round, so there is the playoff bracket for 2010-11. Let's take a look at the cup-winning Washington Capitals team for fun as well. because just in case they've changed any players since. I don't think they have. I think they did bring in a couple new players at the deadline, but let's see what they got. So if we look at their forwards, obviously Ovechkin's now won 2 Stanley Cups, which in real life he hasn't done still, so kind of crazy at this point. Kind of crazy. Nick Backstrom, of course, up there. Alex Semin, Brendan Morrison, Eric Fair. Yeah, pretty much everybody that was on their cup-winning team, I think, in the first year, except for maybe guys like Richard Park. He wasn't there on their first year. He's now a Stanley Cup champion. Matthew Perreault was promoted from the AHL, so this might be his first cup win. Yeah, it is. So that's interesting. Aside from that, defensively, any additions here? Adrian Aucoin, I think, was brought in last year for them. Steve Montador won a cup this year. Yeah, he was one of their traded additions, but it says that he doesn't have a Stanley Cup still, which kind of makes no sense because he did play playoff games. Probably didn't play a regular season game. Yeah, he didn't play a single regular season game with the Caps, but played some playoff games, so that's why I guess he doesn't have his name on the cup. Tyler Sloan. Did Tyler Sloan get his name on the cup? He did. Damn, that's kind of a surprising player to get his name on the cup. And then from a goaltending perspective, it was Varlamov posting a .920 save percentage. The Caps won 16-3 en route to the Stanley Cup win. Crazy. So yeah, that Caps team is still a threat. And the crazy thing is, I think they still have Braden Holtby in the AHL, if I'm not mistaken, so they should be even good down the road. Like if we go to Hershey, is Hershey a playoff team? They weren't. That's actually kind of surprising. Because Hershey should be pretty good still at this point in time, but I guess they didn't make it. And then in terms of individual awards, let's take a look at this. So Washington, yeah, back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. Manchester did win back-to-back Calder Cups. I thought so. So that's kind of interesting. So we got back-to-back champions in both the NHL and AHL to start off this franchise mode. Aside from that, Detroit won the President's Trophy this season. Last year, Washington had won it. Individual awards, Pavel Datsyuk wins the Art Ross Trophy this season. The Hart also going to Pavel Datsyuk. Mike Green wins the Norris. All right. Nick Backstrom, the Lady Byng. Olsen, who was the first overall pick in 2010 before Taylor Hall and all that, he gets the Calder this season. Ovechkin gets the Conn Smythe this season. Last year was Nick Backstrom and the Caps won. The Vezina Trophy going to Ryan Miller. So kind of interesting that Tim Thomas and Ryan Miller both won Vezinas around this point in real life, and they both win them in this franchise mode to start. Jimmy Howard wins the Jennings. All right. Volchenkov wins the Masterton for Tampa. Edmonton's head coach, so that's our head coach actually for that matter, literally wins the Jack Adams, which is kind of funny that he won the Jack Adams because halfway through the season, or when was it in the season that we changed coaches? It was after the first episode of the season, right? So we literally changed coaches after we already had a solid record, I think. And then this coach was in still for the rest of the season, and he ends up winning somehow the Jack Adams. So shout out to our head coach for achieving the Jack Adams. I don't even know why he achieved it, but we could definitely still hold on to this coach if we want to, but we might over-simulate, so maybe we look to fire this guy and find somebody way worse. Mikko Koivu wins the Selke. That's kind of an interesting one to win the Selke, as he beats out Patrice Bergeron and stuff probably. Aside from that, Datsyuk wins the Lindsay. Ovechkin wins the Richard. AHL-wise, any crazy award winners? Chris Taylor, Cam Atkinson, like to see that. Marcus Kruger was the best rookie. Brian Rodney was the best defenseman, realistic. Jonas Gustafsson was the best goalie in the AHL in Toronto. Scott Parse was the MVP of the playoffs. Last year he was the MVP of the playoffs too, so shout out to Scott Parse. If you guys know Scott Parse, you're a legend. Chris Taylor again with another award. Taylor Eckford with an award, or Tyler Eckford. I can't remember what it is. I think it's Tyler Eckford. Jonas Gustafsson also won the HAP. Him and Andrew Engelgage. Shout out to him. Chris Taylor again. Yeah. So Chris Taylor cleaned up on a lot of awards in the AHL. Cool. All right. So now we got to find out who wins the draft lottery this year. And we do have we have a lottery pick this year? I don't remember if Anaheim made the playoffs or not. Let me double check on that. Let's see. Anaheim did make the playoffs. Okay, I wasn't too sure if they made the playoffs. I couldn't remember. So we do not have a lottery selection this year, but we actually have Anaheim's pick next year. It's not this year that we have their picks. So hopefully they still fall off. But let's see who ends up winning the draft lottery. It will be the New York Rangers, who have the first overall pick in 2011 which means I think Nikita Kucherov is going to be joining the New York Rangers, which is kind of insane. Calgary gets number 2, Islanders 3, Ottawa 4, Columbus 5. Let me actually just write that down on a notepad thing, just so that way I could kind of see who is potentially going to go where. We could already do kind of like a mock draft or something like that on what the order is. So New York Rangers number 1, Calgary 2, the Islanders number 3. So both Rangers teams, or not Rangers teams, I'm saying New York teams in the top 5. Ottawa, Columbus, Toronto, Philly. I'm surprised Chicago was that bad this season, though. That's kind of a major surprise. Atlanta, Minnesota, Colorado, Nashville, and Carolina. Perfect. All right, so there's the results on that. Let's see what we got in terms of retirements. Do we get any retirements this season? Because usually creative players take a bit to retire. So if we start off with the goaltenders, there's no goalies. Defensively, Nick Lidstrom is retired in year 2. So that's kind of interesting. A little bit earlier than normal, I think. So shout out to Nick Lidstrom for retiring at 41. Aside from that, these guys are all the real players that were already in the game. Actually, except for Francis Bouillon. He does retire with Nashville. So Bouillon retiring a little bit early too. And then Andy Sutton retires in Boston. So a couple of guys I made retired in this year. Anders Eriksson's another one. He retires with San Jose. Anybody else? Actually, I guess I could just sort by team or something and that'll help things. But yeah, these 4 guys retire on defense. From a right wing perspective, anybody that I made, looks like Jamal Mayers is the only one. So shout out to Jamal Mayers. He retires with the Atlanta Thrashers. Left wing, there's a couple as well. You have Ville Peltonen retiring with Minnesota. Brad May also retires with the Atlanta Thrashers. And then from a center perspective, the best out of the retirements there, Scott Nickel retires and Stefan Yell. All right. So a couple players retiring, but nobody super crazy other than Nick Lidstrom, I guess. Nick Lidstrom's the big one, and we obviously beat him in the playoffs in year 1. So those are the retirements for that. Boom. All right. Coach retirement. Do we lose any coaches? We lost Adam Ferrario. Don't know who that is, but we'll have to replace him. Probably a goalie coach or something like that. And aside from that, did we lose anybody in Springfield? No, we did not. Okay, that's good. That is good. So let's go okay on that. Ville Peltonen has now become a scout, so that's kind of cool. So shout out to Ville Peltonen, Finnish legend. Aside from that, let's take a look at the progress reports, the draft class, and our contract situation. So first and foremost, the progress report. Any good growth from our younger guys that are going to be part of the core of this future team. Marc-Antoine Pouliot actually is getting some growth, which is good. A lot of it's statistical, though, so he's probably not that good. Jordan Eberle is up to an 81. Listed as a third-line scoring forward now. A lot of natural growth from Jordan Eberle, so that's awesome. So, yeah, him hypothetically should be more of a third-liner than a top 6 player next season, but he might be a top 6 because we might be really bad, and we obviously are going to be trying to move on from Hemsky. Riley Nash is NHL ready, pretty much. That's actually really good, too. A lot of natural growth from Riley Nash. He's up to a 77, so he might be a fourth-line center for us next season. Gilbert Brulet's getting some growth. He'll still be here next year. Devin Dubnyk's getting some growth still. Ryan Petolny is still getting growth, apparently, but might be statistical for him. Hemsky apparently is still getting growth, too, which is kind of crazy. Some of it's natural, but a lot of statistical. So, like I said, we'll probably look to move on from him. Gilbert's up to an 86. Goddamn. We might have to look to trade away Gilbert this offseason as well. Stuff like that. Petrie's getting growth. He's actually an 82 at 23. Looks like a lot of our younger guys are actually growing well, which is nice. Sean Horkov apparently is still on statistical growth. The Bullen Wall's dropping off. He didn't retire, which is unfortunate because we need to get rid of that cap hit if possible. So I'll probably trade him this offseason. Lucas Pisa got only a little bit of growth. All right. In the system, Tyler Toffoli's a 69 at 19, kind of a bit low, but he's kind of close, I guess. But looks like we're getting growth from our top prospects, which is what we want to see. Joel Minon's getting some growth, who we traded for. Grubauer's getting some growth. All right. Obviously, we still have a lot of work to build up that prospect pool, but I'll take it. Alexander Burmistrov didn't get any growth, so that's an interesting one, because if he's not going to get any growth after 1 year, do we wait until he's AHL eligible to sign him still? Or do we just randomly throw him into the NHL or something and hope that he could jump up? He might lose his X factors if he does that, though. So, some of our prospects didn't get any growth whatsoever, even including Gagliardi. So, don't really like that. But there is that. Alright, contract situation, then we'll look at the draft class. So, in terms of our contracts, in terms of all expiring, we do need to give out a big deal, I guess, technically, to Andrew Cogliano. He showed to me in the playoffs that he was worth the money. But he wants a 6-year deal at $3.775 million. Doesn't have a whole lot of organizational interest, so probably nothing we could change on this. But I would love to hold on to Cogs for a while, I think, instead of trading him to Anaheim. Ladislav Smed's also an RFA. We obviously could just easily hold on to Laddie Schmid for maybe another year or so. He would be a penny UFA at the end of the year, but he's dirt cheap. Ryan Jones is a UFA. I mean, he's not bad, but do we want to hold on to Jones? I'm not too sure. We definitely will let go of Strudwick because he's old at this point. Chorney could easily play on our defensive core next season and stuff like that. Lucas Biza will play next year. Liam Reddick could easily just sit in our bottom six still. Same with guys like Jeff Schock and all that. So we might hold on to a lot of these kind of guys just to make sure our roster's kind of filled out still. And then from a goaltending perspective, Jeff Delory is a pending UFA. We don't necessarily need to bring him back, but we might want to try and find a way to trade away the Bullenwall. So we could still run Delorier and Dubnyk again next season if we do trade away the Bullenwall. So the Bullenwall is still signed for 2 more years, which is not ideal. So we might have to find a way to offload his contract. But for the most part, obviously most of this team will come back again next season. But we will have to look into some trades probably in the off season. So like I said, guys that could get moved out, Ales Hemsky for sure, Tom Gilbert maybe, Ryan Whitney maybe as well, just so we weaken in our defensive core because that was our strength this season. Aside from that, mostly everybody doesn't matter too much about getting rid of them, I guess technically, and the Bullenwall technically, but so there's probably at least 4 players that we could probably move away next episode. So there is that. Let's take a look at this year's draft class. Obviously, we know it's the 2011 draft class. We looked at it briefly before, but let's do our mock draft since I wrote down all the teams that have the picks. So the Rangers have the first overall pick. So yeah, Nikita Kucherov is going to be a New York Ranger at this point. Let me just move my face so you guys can see more details. But Kucherov likely will be going to the New York Rangers. This LaBarbera guy that's generated is probably going to the Flames, which means the New York Islanders are likely going to be taking Ryan Nugent-Hopkins 3rd overall. Ottawa might be getting Gabriel Landeskog at 4, which is kind of sick. Columbus should be getting Mika Zibanejad. Interesting. If Ottawa got 5th, that would be kind of cool, so they could actually draft Zibanejad. But Columbus getting Zibanejad's not bad. Aside from that, Toronto might be getting Johnny Gaudreau. That's disgusting. Philadelphia might be getting Mark Scheifele. I wish Philadelphia would get Johnny Gaudreau because I know that I'm pretty sure he grew up like a kind of a Flyers fan is what I heard because he was born in New Jersey, or at least close to Philadelphia and all that. I'm not too sure, but maybe he was a New Jersey Devils fan. Aside from that, I guess Chicago would be taking Jonathan Huberdeau. St. Louis would be taking Sean Couturier. Atlanta would be getting Dougie Hamilton. That's kind of an interesting one, I guess. Minnesota would be getting this generated guy in Goldobin. Colorado would be getting this generated guy in Cochrane. That means Nashville would be getting Adam Larson, and Brandon Saad would end up in Carolina if it stays like that. Interesting. But the Rangers with Kucherov, I feel like, is a kind of a weird one. The Rangers aren't even that bad of a team, I don't think, at this point still, and they are going to be literally adding a franchise player, Nikita Kucherov. What do the Rangers look like at this point? Just for fun. Let's see. Do they even need Kucherov? Not really when you have Marian Gaborik. I mean, technically, if we look at the right wing depth, though, I guess they could kind of use him after Vanaganov. So, Kucherov could be their 3rd-line right winger after these 2 guys, but damn. If they look at the forward depth chart, hey, I guess he could fit in this team, but it's kind of a strange Rangers team at this point. Definitely could make them into a cup contender and give Henrik Lundqvist the Stanley Cup, though, by adding Kucherov. So, shout out to the Rangers who are going to get themselves a very nice player. So with that said, I think that's probably it. Now we obviously will have to, like I said, look to trade some players in the next episode. I don't really know what we want in terms of return for those type of players. Like, do we want picks? Do we want prospects? I'm leaning towards picks mainly, maybe some prospects, but I think picks would probably be the best thing to get for somebody like Hemsky, like 2 first-round picks if we can, something like that. But I don't really know where I would trade him and all that type of thing. Like, we'd also maybe have to look into getting, I guess, Sean Horkoff to waive his no-movement clause. So that's something we'll also have to look to do in the next episode, I guess. But at least we still have a young core for next season to build around, like Gagne, Eberle. Like, I like that we have this young core, and then we just need to basically surround it with some good young prospects from the draft, some picks or not some, even players from the draft, even prospects from other teams. And if we offload everybody that's like basically 28 and above, we're going to start becoming one of the younger teams in the NHL. And who knows, maybe this team will not do good for a few years, but they'll have the pieces to become good probably down the road. So with that said, that's going to do it, guys, for this episode of Edmonton Oilers Throwback 2010 Franchise Mode. So in next episode, we'll take it to the 2011 NHL Draft. We'll look to see what we can get there. We could try and move up in this year's draft if you guys think it's necessary. I don't really know if it's worth moving up for players in this draft or if we want to wait and kind of basically get rid of Hemsky for future picks. So we could try and get multiple first rounders in like 2012 or 2013, something like that instead. So obviously we have a lot of decisions with that, but fun little playoff run again. Hopefully next season we're not as good. Hopefully we can't find a way to get into the playoffs. And hopefully we find a way to just basically continue to get these younger guys good growth. And obviously again, start this rebuild on the right note. So I think down below, and I'll see you guys next time.